Hey guys, it's Vince and Drew with Power 5 Fanatics, and we're coming at you with our last video we'll do this week. This is where we do takeaways back from week 5, and kind of where, our assessment of where college football is right now. We're about a third of the way through the season right now, so things are clearing up somewhat in some of the conferences, and
Right.
Which teams are really going to be there at the end, or it's ones that are looking like actually be there in the playoffs. My first takeaway is one of those teams I think probably will still be in the playoffs, but I don't think it's as deadlock as most people were thinking at least 2 or 3 weeks ago, especially back in the off season.
Right.
And that's Clemson. And do I think they're still a great team? Yes. I mean, we have them number 3 in our top 25 at Power 5 Fanatics. I thought at one point they were unquestionably the number 1 team, but after their, barely holding on against North Carolina this week, it's just they're not looking like a championship team at this point. Things could change. I still think they're definitely going to go undefeated because the ACC is so weak. We'll get into that here in a little bit. But Trevor Lawrence is just not playing at the level you thought he would, especially after the championship game last year. I think he has 8 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. He's not playing at the Heisman level that we were thinking he probably would. But I don't think it's all his fault either. The team itself is pretty young, and
Right.
a lot of people don't realize how many of those players they lost off their defense. So anyway, I don't think we obviously don't think they're the number 1 team. I don't think it's a lock they're going to make the playoffs at this point either. I think they probably will because the ACC, though, is just so weak.
Yeah, they haven't. This was kind of their first real scare, and they've had these every single season. That I can think of. Last year they almost lost to Syracuse. The year before that they did lose to
And
Syracuse.
that does happen.
I think the year
it
before
happens
that,
to Alabama sometimes.
I think the year before that they lost to Pitt. The thing is though, I think at this point they haven't really completely dominated anyone either. They did dominate.
was probably the best win
Pitt,
they've had.
Or I'm sorry, Georgia Tech too potentially.
I was just saying, as far as like a quality win, I'd say A&M
Yeah.
it was the best because they actually did win by, 20
I
points.
think A&M covered at the very end.
Yeah,
but
at the very
it was
end.
like 24-3 for most of that game.
Right.
So they haven't. I mean, they did dominate that game, but that's kind of showing that A&M may not quite be as good as well because they struggled against Arkansas. So Clemson, they still look really good, and I think they're going to be in the playoffs as well. But I just don't know how much of a at this time, if they're going to be able to truly win a national title again. It's really hard to repeat 2 years in a row as well. So
Obviously.
we haven't seen that many times. So we'll just have to see.
Yeah,
how
and the other thing
progresses.
is, going into the season, it was looking like, hey, there's 5 or 6 teams that really have a shot. I really think there's maybe 8 to 10 now that you could say has a legitimate shot. So the competition's been ratcheted up a little bit too, I think. So
yeah, I agree. A lot of the talent around the country is kind of starting to catch up to some of those elite teams like Clemson and Alabama.
And
Georgia's
Ohio
up
State.
there. Ohio State's now up there.
But I mean, you got those other ones like Auburn, LSU,
Yeah.
that we weren't sure they were going to be there at the end, maybe, and it looks like they may be.
Right.
The next takeaway we have, the third one, is going back to the playoffs themselves. I don't think there's going to be a Pac-12 school in there again. There hasn't been in a while. I think Washington was the last one, but I actually think the Pac-12 is better now than it was last year.
Yeah, it's better than the ACC right now, too.
Yeah, it's a better conference overall. It's just there's a lot of teams in the middle. There's not any truly great team in that conference. Your only 2 choices probably at this point would be Washington or Oregon. But everybody has a loss, so
Yeah.
they're to the point where they don't have any room for error at all, and there's just too many good teams in that conference. I've been saying this from the get-go. I'd be surprised if the Pac-12 winner doesn't have 2 losses. So therefore, I don't see them being in the playoff discussion at the very end.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just so many quality teams. You can go down the line: Washington, Oregon, Utah,
USC, Arizona
USC,
State,
Arizona
Cal.
has won 2 in a row. Cal is 4-1.
Washington, Oregon, yeah.
Right.
I mean, all those teams are.
You know, the only ones that you could just say, well, hey, you know, they're out of it would be Oregon State and it's probably Stanford at this point and UCLA, but that's it.
Yeah.
So everybody else is just playing really good. So don't think there's going to be a Pac-12 representative in the playoffs just because they're going to beat each other up so much.
Yeah, and the Oregon loss to Auburn's not looking as bad. I'm still going to, I guess keep them in the race. They would be the one shot.
I just don't think they're going to get through unscathed at this point.
I don't think they will either. And this week they play Cal.
Yeah,
they're 18-point favorite over them, but Cal
beat Washington.
Yeah, Cal beat Washington
at Washington. That was a game that went on till about 2 in the morning, but
yeah,
they did
they're a pretty
win.
Scrappy team too.
Yeah.
So just all in all, the Pac-12 is. Their weaknesses this year is just that they have so many quality good teams that I don't think
and it doesn't look like they have any truly great teams either.
Yeah, and I just don't think, especially with the past couple of years, they've gotten enough respect to where if you did lose one game, you'd still legitimately have a shot to get in there if you won the conference. So they got to earn that back at the end. And then the last thing we got here is the Heisman race. In the beginning of the season, it looked like it was pretty open, but I think at this point it's still very open, but it's starting to solidify a little bit.
Really between 3 players.
3 guys.
Of course, all quarterbacks.
Hurts, Tua, and Justin Fields has really come along.
I think in that order also.
Yeah, and you can still throw in Burrow or Ellinger or Jonathan Taylor or Chuba Hubbard with Oklahoma State. Those guys have been playing fantastic, but
I really think it's between those top 3, and one of the bigger reasons, besides they're all playing outstanding, is their teams they're on are all playing outstanding. And as college football fans, as you know, a lot of that has to do with your team also if you're going to win.
Yeah, it's a popularity contest.
Yeah, you don't go 9-3 and win the Heisman.
It's the teams that are oftentimes getting on prime time that a lot of people are watching.
So, there's 3 great teams with 3 great quarterbacks. And so I really agree with Drew. It's solidified somewhat. I'd really be surprised if one of those doesn't win it at the end. I mean, I'd say the odds are heavily stacked with one of those 3 players.
Yeah, and right now we got Hurts at the top of that list, and then Tua, and then Justin Fields kind of right behind them. But I honestly think if he keeps playing at the level he's at, it's close between those 3 guys. And then there's
I still think Hurts is, just from the standpoint, his passing is right there with Mayfield. Yeah. Like maybe a little bit less, but he's got a lot more rushing yards than Kyler Murray had. Mm-hmm. So if you look at his season so far, it's better than Baker Mayfield's or Kyler Murray's, in my opinion, at this point. Right. So if he can keep it up, it's going to depend a lot also on some of the bigger games coming up with him, just like it would for any of these players. The Texas game, obviously, is a big one. Yeah. But, I don't think he has to win that either to win it. Going back a year ago, Kyler Murray won it without beating Texas.
And at this time, it's starting to look like they're probably going to play Texas twice outside of something.
Yeah. Of course, Kyler Murray did beat Texas last year in the
the Big 12 championship.
Big 12 championship.
So it's probably going to be, how does he play in those games, but also how does he play in some of these other games as well. There's still a lot of season left, but
I think it is solidifying.
It's starting to kind of come into
I would
shape,
say they'd be major. The odds would be heavily in favor of one of those 3 players winning it.
And we think Hurts at the moment, but we would listen to an argument for any of those guys because they're all playing out of the
no joke. Now. Every one of them. Tua's actually had to play more this year than he's used to.
I think that's going to help him, too,
it will help him as far as the Heisman. And Fields has just really come out of nowhere because, I think everybody knew that he was going to be good, but he's actually been great. Yeah. And so he's really been a surprise. In fact, I'd say he's one of the bigger surprises of the entire college football season.
As far as his level of play, he's playing at an elite level right now. If you just look at – and their whole team is – but and then going back to Tua, playing the 4 quarters is going to really help him. And there's an argument to be made that if he would have done that last year, he could have won last year. Yeah. So
I think he probably would have.
Not going to surprise me at all if that is the
It's going to be interesting. Actually, I think it's really close between those 3. I think it's going to be very interesting the way this thing pans out the next 3 months.
Yeah.
Well, guys, that's our takeaways. Thanks for sharing part of your day with us. Like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell. We're going to be pumping more videos out as we get deeper into the college football season.
We really love doing this with you guys. It's a lot of fun. So let us know what you think. Thanks.